This is Solo in the Shop, episode 29. On today's show, after a quick shop update, we're going to do part 2 of my series on overcoming fear in the shop. Let's dive in. Whether you are a hobbyist, weekend warrior, making commissions for friends and family, or already a full-time maker, if you are solo in your shop, this is the show for you. I'm Ronald Lowe's, the host of Solo in the Shop, a woodworking podcast discussing everything from current projects, tools and techniques, decisions around running a small business, and much more. So if you frequently find yourself alone and covered in sawdust, follow my journey and we can be solo in the shop together. Hello, friends. The pace has not slowed down in the shop at all. There is a lot of sales activity going on. I picked up a couple bookcase jobs that I have started working through. Those are going to be cherry, and one is 6 feet tall, one is about 4 feet tall. I also have 2 coffee table projects that are in different stages. One is ready to deliver, hopefully next weekend, and the other is just getting started. I've got the wood, and we haven't even settled on the overall dimensions yet, but the client wanted something funky, so I got some live edge Osage orange, and it is funky to find. So hopefully that'll get well defined over the next week or so, and I can get going on that. I've got a couple table sales that are in the pipeline and hoping to close those this week, and that would make September a very successful month for me. That would really make a huge difference to me. So fingers crossed on those. I wanted to continue talking about overcoming fear in the shop, and specifically overcoming what I'll call irrational fear, which is fear that isn't because of a trauma, an experience, or just the healthy respect for tools that everyone should have. You might not know this about me, but for years I was a CrossFit athlete and coach. One thing that happened regularly in the gym was this paralysis as students were trying to conquer box jumps. And this is literally what it sounds like. Swing your arms and jump from the floor to the top of a box. The box might be 9 inches, 12 inches, 18, 20, 24, 36 inches off the ground. There is definitely a place for healthy fear of that activity. If it's just an unpadded wooden box, if you miss and drag your shins down the corner of that box, it's going to do some serious damage, and you're going to wish that you had stuck the landing a little better. But even at modest heights, and knowing that keeping your eye on the target and paying attention to every rep is a sure way to be successful, there is a height that most athletes will get to, and they'll hesitate, and they'll think, nope, I'm not going to do this. And they get in their head, it becomes this irrational fear of that height. They stutter. They get up to the box, they swing their arms, they're about to jump, and they stop. And they stop themselves. They don't go. They jump a little bit and kick the box and then grab the box. And it takes a lot of coaxing and practice and patience to get past that. And I think some of the strategies that work for conquering box jumps can help us assess how best to overcome fear of power tools in the shop. The first is to have a conversation about the fear, acknowledge the fear, and let them know that the fear is natural and perfectly normal, but it is also something that can be overcome. If possible, try and draw out what is making them anxious. Is it noise, speed, power, fear of injury? Understanding that can tailor how we address getting comfortable with each tool. After having a conversation, the next step is just to kind of educate and get familiar with the tools one at a time, starting with, we'll call it less intimidating tools like a drill or a sander, and then moving on to more powerful equipment as we get comfortable with each one. Explaining each tool, the parts, how it operates, and what safety features are built into that tool. And then also learn about how to properly use a tool successfully and safely. That means knowing about not just PPE, but also about clamping and controlling your material, controlling your tool, knowing what to expect. Once they're familiar, this is a good time to demonstrate and show kind of in small steps how to use the tool. So this is kind of the learn from someone else, learn from someone who knows. Let me show you this part, and then they try it. And you have them watch what you're doing. You demystify the process. You talk through or narrate what you're doing so that they can connect what they're seeing with the approach that you're using with that tool. The next step is to lower the stakes, right? Using a power tool at full blast can be anxiety inducing, we'll say. It can be scary, but have we thought about trying it with the power off? Go through the motions so that you can feel the weight of the wood, the weight of the tool. If it's a drill, the weight of the tool. If it's a table saw, the resistance of the table and the feel of pushing against the fence and pushing down on the wood and how all of that's going to feel. No stakes at all, right? Don't turn the power on. Just get used to the motion. And then starting with small cuts or a small hole, do something small. You don't need to jump into a giant piece of wood and a giant long rip cut. Drill a small hole, make a short cut, and then move up to some easier tasks like sanding, doing a straight cut, following a line, things like that are low stress, simple tasks. These were the first real baby steps with the tool. It's good to create a calm environment, an organized environment. So control the setting. If your shop is overly cluttered, dusty, and just generally treacherous, that's adding anxiety when you're trying to reduce anxiety. I think of it kind of like the mental hospital. It's very sterile because it doesn't add anxiety to the environment. You want to keep a sterile environment where outside factors are not creating anxiety when you're trying to create a calm environment. The other thing about keeping it calm is to take breaks. Don't just charge through and be like, we're going to solve this today. It could be, we're going to do a 5-minute session and then we'll come back to it. And working up to, being overwhelmed in one session is not progress. It needs to be little successes. And that gets us to the next thing, which is celebrating those small victories. When you get to a point where you've moved past where you were stuck before, that's the time to celebrate and say, look, this was a problem before. Now it's time to acknowledge you got further. So you celebrate success, you reassure, definitely make sure that they know that it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I feel like in woodworking, making mistakes and recovering from that is 80% of the job. And then encourage them to look back and say, look, you did this. Appreciate what you've done, and we'll try something else at the next session. So increase complexity slowly is the next thing. Adding complex tasks is something that is only appropriate once they've gotten comfortable. And that happens slowly. Introducing new tools, same thing. Once it has to wait, it has to be they get comfortable with something simple like a drill or a sander. And then you can add, the miter saw, and then you can add the jointer. I feel like the miter saw and the table saw, and if you're going to do like a handheld circular saw without a track, those things have to be last. If you have a biscuit joiner or a domino, those can come pretty early. They're fairly easily controlled. They're noisy, but they're relatively safe and easy to get comfortable with. So gradual exposure to complexity and new tools. One of the things that worked well, if I think back to the box jump scenario, was visualizing and breathing. And I do think that that has a place in getting comfortable with tools. Taking a moment to visualize what you are going to accomplish, what they are going to do when it comes to, I'm going to hold the material this way, I'm going to clamp it this way, I'm going to pull the trigger and then slowly move the blade through, or, I'm going to line up the drill over the mark and I'm going to slowly start a hole, and then I'm going to apply more pressure and let it dig through and keep control. Visualizing all of that really helps. And then holding your breath makes it worse. So encourage them to take a deep breath, breathe out, breathe in, and go. And then, if it's a short thing, yeah, you can hold your breath. But the reality is keeping your breathing regular keeps you calm. And this is a good thing to keep in mind when you're trying to overcome anxiety. Keep that breathing regular. Once all of that has happened, now it's time to encourage independence and encourage them to recognize their confidence, give them some space to work independently, stay close by if they have questions or you need to give a pointer before they pull the trigger. That's all fine, but more and more independence is the only path to confidence. Encourage them to practice regularly and to also have a routine of what they're going to check with each tool, whether it's PPE, material stability, tool stability, alignment, things like that. They should have a routine, and the routine is what's going to give them some comfort. And they need to treat it like a pre-flight checklist. Before I go, these are the steps I want to make sure. Do I have my eyes protected, my ears protected? Is the material secure in a way that even when the job is done, it's not going to shoot out and hit me? All of those things need to be considered. And it needs to be a routine that they can repeat over and over and over. And then the last thing is just to stay patient. Sometimes it can be frustrating when you're the one that's very comfortable and you don't understand why they hesitate. But being supportive, being patient, being flexible, and being willing to adjust the approach to each tool based on their comfort level. That's the only way. And patience and being supportive will make a huge difference. These are all the techniques, I'll call them, that I've come up with for helping people overcome their fear of power tools in the shop. There are plenty of people who have great creative ideas but get held back because of fear. And as accomplished woodworkers, we have the opportunity to increase the community and increase people's enjoyment of woodworking. So hopefully these ideas will give you some motivation to help somebody who wants to get in the shop but is a little hesitant. That's what I have for you this week. Still waiting for some great news, big news. I don't know. It's the government. It takes a minute. I really want to share it with you. I'm getting ready for it, but still not done. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to reach out to me at SoloInTheShop@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you got value from it and would like to help the show grow, I'd appreciate a review wherever you listen. Be sure to check the show notes for links to my socials or any extra stuff we discussed today. Until next time, stay safe in your shop, and we'll talk again soon.